All right, today we're going to dive into a really powerful sermon by Reverend Paulette and Puma Banim. We're going to break down its core message, this incredible journey of how faith gets tested, and how our deepest personal trials can actually be turned into something amazing, a powerful testimony.
The sermon kicks off with this really profound idea that our everyday existence, just waking up in the morning, is an amazing manifestation. It's a call to start seeing the divine in the small things, not just the big dramatic moments. It totally sets the stage for finding something extraordinary in the things we might just take for granted.
So, where does a message like that even come from? Well, it's all built on a very specific foundation. Before we can even talk about trials or testimony, the sermon first has to establish a clear picture of God's role in a believer's life. At the very heart of this is the idea of God as the ultimate provider. And just listen to the language used here. It's so personal. The father to the fatherless, the husband to the widow. This isn't some distant, abstract force. No, this is someone who steps in to fill the biggest, most painful voids a person can have. And it builds from there. The sermon lays out these core attributes. God is the beginning and the end, the Alpha and Omega. He is the ultimate source, the place where you can find, literally, everything we can ever need. And this is crucial, this relationship is meant to be transformative, a change that happens through his Son. So, once we have this picture of God as the source, the sermon naturally pivots to the specific role of Jesus. He's presented as both the proof of God's power and the actual provision that he offers. He's really the cornerstone of this entire belief system. To really drive this point home, the sermon pulls this incredible quote straight from the scriptures. Jesus isn't just giving bread, he is the bread. It's this powerful metaphor that frames him as essential, life-giving spiritual nourishment, the ultimate provision for your soul. Now, this is where it gets really fascinating. The sermon sets up this sharp contrast. On one side, you've got the ancestors. They ate manna in the wilderness. Sure, it was a miracle, but it was physical food, and they still died. But on the other side, followers get something totally different, this living bread, which promises eternal life. The point is huge. It's the difference between something that sustains your body temporarily and something that sustains your spirit forever. But what about doubt, right? What if you're just not convinced by words alone? The sermon tackles this head-on. It points to Jesus' challenge to his critics. Hey, if you can't believe what I'm saying, then just look at what I'm doing. Believe the works, the miracles, the healing, all of it is presented as tangible proof you can see with your own eyes, totally separate from just having faith in words. Okay, so we've got God as the provider and Jesus as the proof. So what's next? How are you supposed to actually live this out? This is where the sermon shifts into the practical side of things, what it calls a life of exceeding faith, which is framed as a journey of the Spirit. And this leads to a really direct, maybe even a little uncomfortable question. It's a challenge, really, for everyone listening to just stop and ask themselves, how strong is my faith? It's not about comparing yourself to others, but about taking a hard look at your own resilience, especially when things get tough. And the sermon lays out the path for how that faith is built. But here's the thing, it's not a walk in the park. It starts with being led by the Spirit, but not into comfort. You're led directly into the wilderness, a place of trial. And there, you're tempted and tested. The purpose isn't to crush you, though. The sermon frames this entire difficult process as a way of being cleaned and prepared for what's supposed to come next. And that whole idea of being prepared brings us to the final and honestly, the most moving part of the message. This is where all the theology becomes real. This section is all about showing how that tough journey through the wilderness is actually designed to produce something incredibly powerful, a personal testimony.
So a story is shared in the sermon, and it doesn't start with some triumphant, holy moment. No, it starts from a place of real struggle. The speaker admits to a time of personal unfaithfulness, a time when their life just was not matching their beliefs. It's an honest, raw, and super relatable starting point.
And then everything changes. The turning point is described as an exhibition of prophecy. This wasn't just a quiet thought or a feeling. It was a specific, powerful, external, spiritual event that completely interrupted the speaker's life and changed their entire direction. So what happened after this incredible moment? Real, tangible change. The speaker puts it so simply, but it's so powerful. I saw things changing.
It highlights that this transformation wasn't just some internal feeling, it had real, visible effects on their life. Now, this, right here, this is the key that ties it all together. The speaker looks back at that whole difficult time, the unfaithfulness, the shame, and completely reframes it. They don't see it as a failure anymore. Instead, they say, I take it for cleaning and preparing me. This connects their personal struggle right back to that purposeful journey through the wilderness we just talked about.
So, this is where Reverend Banham's sermon leaves us. It's a journey from the foundation of God as a provider, through the fire of testing your faith, all leading to this moment of personal transformation. And it leaves us with a huge question to think about. In our world of data and science and facts, what is the role of a personal story of faith? What does testimony really mean today?